I don't overthink because I can't make a decision. Overthink because I'm afraid of trusting the wrong decision again. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that. We've all made decisions that in the moment we thought were probably the best decisions to make, only to find out later that they weren't good decisions or the outcome wasn't what we wanted it to be. For me personally, I think not trusting my own decision making came about after a pretty significant betrayal. I've talked a little bit about that before, not in great depth. But suffice it to say that it was a level of betrayal that made me question everything about my own decision making, made me question everything about who I thought the other person was, or what I thought I meant to them, or what they meant to me, or what I had created in a life that I had built with someone. And I'm not just talking about, infidelity, although that is a thing that is very much a deep, deep level of betrayal that makes people question their own decisions. It's more than that. It's more than, um, I'm not trying to minimize that because that's pretty significant. I guess what I'm trying to say is when there's been a betrayal that makes you question your own perception of who that person was or what the situation was, only to find out that it wasn't that at all, it makes you go back then and think about every decision that you ever made that got you to that point to begin with. And so overthinking was something that I had done most of my life. Again, I think when you grow up in trauma, that's just something that you do, right? You're always trying to figure out what's the right action to take, what's the right decision, is this, is that, because you're always trying to create a sense of safety and security, or at least I was, right? And so trying to make the right decision and not always having a lot of guidance around those decisions, just doing the best that you can with what you have in any given moment, only to find out later that it wasn't such a great decision. And I think one of the things that I experienced right when I went through professional burnout that I talked a little bit about before, and how I made some decisions right after, I had quit that job because I was in the same mindset that I had created the problem from, and I was acting from that place in decision making, and that ended up to be not some great decisions, and that was pretty significant. Financial consequence for me making those decisions. And so then that again makes you overthink. Is this the right thing to do? Everything from putting yourself out there to meet new friends, to applying for a job, or to figuring out a YouTube thing, right? Is this the right thing to do? Or what am I going to talk about on my YouTube channel? And, having a gazillion different questions, because when you're doing something you've never done before, there's a lot of questions that come along with that. But really, it's about being able to regain trust in yourself. For me, it's been about that. I don't know about you. Maybe you let me know in the comments below. But for me, it's been about being able to regain trust in myself. And it sometimes it had to start with something really small, like making a commitment to myself and keeping it, learning that I could trust myself to follow through on my commitments, that I could trust myself in the word that I gave to myself. For example, I'm going to walk 3 times this week for 30 minutes each time, right? And then getting up and doing it and not giving myself an out for not doing that. And so then that created that self trust that I had to rebuild slowly over a period of time. And along with that, for me, and trusting my own decision making and how to get back to that, also had to give myself a big old heaping dose of self compassion, that I'm allowed to make mistakes, and that, I do the best I can with the information that I have when I make that decision. And I think that's true for all of us, that we do the very best we can with what we have. And when we have different information later and we find out something different, then we can look back on that decision. And sometimes we want to judge ourselves for making that decision, but we judge ourselves based on the information that we have now, not the information that we have then. And that really does do a disservice to our own sense of self trust and our own decision making process. I am a terrible overthinker, right? Because I've tried, like, I think when people have anxiety, right, that's what you do. You try to figure out all the angles because you're trying to create some sense of certainty, and there is no certainty. You just do the thing based on the best information that you have, and you either get a good outcome or you get some good experience. At least that's how I've had to try to reframe everything for myself. But learning to trust yourself again after making poor decisions really does require some self-analysis, right? Why did I make that decision? What were the factors that went into that? Were there things that I've learned about myself in that decision making process that I wasn't seeing back then, right? Where was I blinded? And this can really put you in touch with some of those uh, uncomfortable aspects of yourself, doing that type of deep self analysis, looking at, for a lot of folks, it's why do I keep ending up in the same kinds of relationship, even though it's different times and with different people and maybe different cities even, right? Well, the common denominator in that would be us, our individual selves. So, what is it about me? What is it within me that I keep picking these same kinds of people or these same jobs or these same friends or whatever it happens to be? And really being willing to look at what are those unresolved parts within myself that keep showing up in these decisions that I'm making. And for me, it was not trusting my own intuition, not trusting that still small voice within that said, probably isn't the right thing to do, but having lots of rational reasons why it was a good decision and going with that and disconnecting from my intuition, disconnecting from what I consider, the God within me, spirit, source, whatever you want to call it, within that is our inner compass, and not being able to trust that inner compass. And so when you've made bad decisions, it really, for me, I'll speak from my own experience. For me, it required spending a lot of time in solitude, spending a lot of time in self-examination to to figure out how do I begin to rebuild that? How do I begin to reconnect with my own intuition? And how do I begin to hear that first of all? Well, I can't hear it if my inner critic is active and is full of condemnation and judgment and shame and guilt and all those other kinds of emotions that we've got to get to the other side of. Because if we don't, we can't ever get back to ourselves, to our inner guidance system, right? To our intuition, to spirit within us. So this has been a learning process for me, learning how to regain trust in my own decisions. And I struggle with that still on a daily basis sometimes. Like certainly doing this thing, right, has been something. Is this the right decision? I don't know. I keep saying that. I don't know. Trying to figure out lots of things that I just don't have enough experience to figure out. I don't have an answer to. So I'm doing and I'm trying to gain experience through the doing of things rather than just the contemplating of things. And that seems to be a better predictor, right? I'll do something, I'll see how it goes, I'll see how it works out, I'll see what I think about it at the end result, and then I modify and go from there. And try to do that by giving myself a little bit of grace and a little bit of self compassion for being in a learning process. So if you've doubted your own decision making, if you have a tendency to overthink things, um, might be a good idea to sit down and ask yourself, what's going on with me that I don't trust my own inner judgment, that I don't trust my own decisions? What are the things that have influenced me? Has it been people? Has it been placing my trust in the wrong people? Has it been not trusting that still small voice within myself? Whatever it is for you, let me know. Let me know what helped you learn how to trust yourself again and how not to overthink every decision that you make. Until next time, thanks.